Hey guys, Harlan here, back in for DML. He is busy, back out at the estate, quickly putting together a really awesome studio. We spent really all week and last week too, starting to put together this studio, and so it's exciting. I can't wait to share it with more of you guys. We're gonna wait on the audience to build here because we have so much news. I don't want any of you guys to miss out on it, including some interesting news on that Melania lawsuit. So we're going to wait on this to build. Good morning to you guys. Dennis will be back ASAP, but he is tied up today. We've got contractors and all kinds of stuff going on at the house, and we are building a really awesome studio. I think it's the future of news. I really do. Good morning, Annie. And I cannot wait to share that with you guys. So we're over 1,000. We're on our way to 2. Let's start off with what I think was one of the biggest news stories of the day that really hasn't been covered very much at all. You know, you may have remembered back during the campaign, there was a blogger in Maryland that wrote really sort of a slanderous piece on Melania Trump. It alleged that Melania had worked as a prostitute in the 1990s. It was a disgusting hit piece on who is, you know, by all accounts, a great woman, a great mom, and our current First Lady. And so the lawsuit has been settled for a substantial sum as of yesterday. Obviously, this blogger and his attorneys didn't think that they could win in court, so they just went ahead and settled. Melania wants this out of her way, but she wanted, and I think Donald wanted, the blogger to pay a price and to use this as an example. You guys cannot say anything you want about the Trumps. You can't make up lies. You can't get away with this stuff, and if you do, there are going to be consequences. So that was a pretty big thing. It came down in Maryland. The First Lady of the United States has settled her lawsuit against Webster Griffin Tarpley of Maryland. So that's done. That's a thing of the past. Now let's move on to some other fake news that I've seen. You know, I saw a CBS poll on Donald Trump's favorability ratings over the last couple of days, and what's really interesting is that they're trying to portray him as being, you know, more or less not very well liked by the American people at this point. To be honest with you, it couldn't be anything further from the truth. And so there was an interesting study that came out just this morning that it turns out that there are two different kinds of polls. And one is a poll that's traditionally run by the mainstream media that it consists of somebody who is on a phone calling people and asking them, what do you think of Donald Trump? Now, when you do that, when you call people and you ask them this question, they give you a very different answer than if you run what's a more modern form of poll taking, and it's automated. And so you get an automated call and it says, hey, what do you think of Donald Trump? Or you'll get something online and it'll say, hey, what do you think of Donald Trump? And these are still scientific polls, but if you're asked by a human, you're more hesitant to answer honestly or to answer at all. At least Trump supporters are. And so there's a study, and so that CBS poll that I was talking about, it showed that Trump had a 40% favorability rating. The Rasmussen poll shows that, the Rasmussen poll shows that he has a 54% approval rating. And then there are a couple other polls here. The Reuters poll has him over 50% as well. And both of those polls that have him a little bit higher are conducted with more modern polling techniques. I don't know if the mainstream media is intentionally not modernizing their polling because they hope that their polls are a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like with the election, they thought that if they said enough times that Donald Trump had no chance of winning, then he would have no chance of winning. His people wouldn't get out to the polls to support him because they would feel like they were helpless. It turns out that wasn't true, that the Trump coalition was really strong, and we turned up on election day, and Hillary's people didn't. And so, or they did, but it wasn't in the numbers that the mainstream media thought it would be. So what we're seeing is that the mainstream media has not learned their lesson. They're repeating the same mistakes of the past, whether it's willful or I don't know. I mean, what I'm trying to get across is that I'm not sure if they're doing this deliberately or if they're just so stuck in their ways that they can't accept that they've been getting it wrong. So that's some good news, I think. And we saw this also. I think I said in my last walk and talk that when you looked at the polling on Trump's travel ban from the 7 predominantly Muslim countries, it doesn't match up with the mainstream media narrative at all. It was a clear majority of Americans across all of the polls supported him. and supported the travel ban. And we actually saw this this morning in a poll that came out of Europe. That it was they did an aggregate poll of the entire European Union, and a clear majority supported a travel ban of their own. So they liked a Trump-style travel ban being applied to their own countries. In many ways, they've been hit harder by daily terrorism than we have in the United States. We've been lucky, as we saw with the Bataclan and Paris, or even last week in the Louvre. They've had many in Belgium, in Germany. I mean, in UK, there have been countless terror attacks. Many of them, Donald Trump's right, are underreported. I remember reading, this was back just a couple years ago, about a guy that had a sword, and he screamed Allah Akbar and attacked UK military officers in the streets of London. It wasn't a very nice neighborhood, but it was clear that that was a form of a terrorist attack. And so when Donald Trump says that terror attacks are underreported, he's right. He's not talking about these big, he's not talking about somebody flying a plane into a building or blowing up a bomb or having an assault on a music venue. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about these crimes that happen day to day that are motivated by radical sects of Islam, and they're tacitly terror attacks. And that's the story that's not told in the media. I hope I hope his team helps him articulate that a little bit better, because he's right. He's right. And so when you have Scott Pelley over there at CBS, just a couple blocks from where I am right now here in Manhattan, accusing Trump of propagating fake news, or CNN accusing him of propagating fake news, he's right. He's calling them out on the underreporting. They just aren't doing their jobs, and they haven't for years. And that probably scares them. Anyway, let's move on to that. Move on from that. The other thing that I saw is that there's so much, and you guys have seen it too. You guys saw with LL Bean and New Balance after the election. The CEOs of these companies, and they're great American companies. They make stuff here in America. Great American success stories. Great families. They've come out and they've said, we support Donald Trump. We like what he's saying. Well, the CEO of Under Armour, another great American success story, a guy that started out in Maryland and built a business that took on the big athletic empires of the world, Adidas and Nike, and he's competing on a level playing field with them, and he's beating them. It's a great American company, and he's getting flack from liberals and the mainstream media for saying that he supports Donald Trump. That he actually said, it's so great to have a pro-business president. It is something that is a real asset to our country. He wants to build things. He wants to make bold decisions and be really decisive. And now here's where I saw a big difference between how he perceives Trump and how a lot of people perceive Obama. He says, I'm a big fan of people that operate in the world of publish and iterate versus think. Now that is the difference. Donald's not going to get it right 100% of the time. Right? You know that, I know that. He's not going to get it right. Nobody will get it right 100% of the time. But he has this mentality that we're going to act quick. We're going to move quickly, and if we make a mistake or if we need to refine, we're going to do it on the fly. Whereas Obama, he was too hesitant to act, particularly in terms of foreign policy, and when he did, he overthought it or overanalyzed it, or believed what he was naive, and he took people at their words, and so he didn't have enough experience. Whereas Donald Trump, he's done these things so many times already. I believe that he's accomplished more than probably Obama did in his first term. I think that there's a lot happening behind the scenes that gives me a lot of hope. I hope that Congress is going to work with him. My concern isn't Trump. My concern isn't his ability to get things done on his end. But he's got to work with the American Congress. And so, getting back to this story, Under Armour, it is really nice. It is really nice having a pro-business president, and I hope that isn't just rhetoric. I hope that we're actually able to get a lot of these things done, including tax reform. When I heard Paul Ryan say, we're dealing with a 180-day plan on tax cuts, that stinks, man. And Matt Drudge today was saying, we've had control of the Trump coalition has had control of the White House, the House, and the Senate for several weeks now, and we still have a tax if you don't carry Obamacare. What are we waiting on? And I know that the bottleneck isn't Trump. What are you waiting on, Congress? Donald can be as pro-business. He can be as aggressive as he wants to be. He can live up to the expectations of that CEO of Under Armour, Kevin Plank, and the CEOs of LL Bean and New Balance to bring good American jobs back here, to defend American businesses against, cheap goods that are flooding our markets. But he can't do it alone. And so, you're on notice. Donald likes to put people on notice. Well, I think collectively all of us should start to put Congress on notice. If Democrats and Republicans don't come together to act now, there are going to be consequences in 2018. And speaking of 2018, Rahm Emanuel was at Stanford. He was at Stanford's Graduate School of Business, and he had some pretty tough words for Democrats. He said, Emanuel said that Democrats need to take a chill pill. He says 2018 is not going to happen. He said it ain't going to happen. A lot of these Democrats think that Elizabeth Warren is going to be their saving grace in 2020. That's laughable and crazy. If that's the best they have to put up against Donald, they're screwed. But also, a lot of Democrats are saying that they think that they can take back the House and Senate, or at least the House or Senate, one or the other, in 2018. And Rahm is at least grounded in reality. He knows that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. He said it took Democrats a long time to get this low. He's recognizing that the Democratic Party has become basically irrelevant in terms of governing our country. And it's not going to happen in 2018. Sometimes you've just got to win. Winning's everything. If you don't win, you can't make the public policy. I say that because it is hard for some people in our party to accept that principle. Now, who's he talking about there? He's talking about people that are on the far left of the Democratic Party. It's part of the reason that I have felt like I can't caucus with the Democrats anymore. In this pursuit of far left principles, particularly around socioeconomics. I don't adhere to that. That wasn't the Democratic Party I was a part of. I share a more moderate vision, probably in line with Donald Trump. But he recognizes that these far left-wing fringes of the party are going to tear it apart, and they can be as principled as they want on progressive policy. But you know what? As long as they do it, they're going to keep losing. And as long as they keep screaming that the sky is falling, they're going to keep losing because people are starting to drown them out. You can only cry wolf so many times. So a little bit of this was also pretty good. He brought up a really good point. He said, you have to have a vision for the American people. And I said this back during the election. I said, the American people just want a leader. They just want somebody to stand up and say, hey, this is our plan. This is where we're going. Not all of us are going to agree with it. But, after 8 years of not having a plan, it was refreshing to have one. And he said Hillary didn't have one. He said, you have to give people your vision. You got to know you can't beat something with nothing. That was Bill Clinton's lesson to me, being Rahm Emanuel. You have to have an alternative. Hillary's was, I'm with her. That pretty much sums it up. I mean, that's some pretty good political analysis. He's right. He's right. Now, speaking of fringe wings of the progressive movement, you guys may have seen this video in Toronto of the Canadian Black Lives Matter leader, Yusra. I can't pronounce the last name. I'm sorry. I mean, no offense, but I can't pronounce the last name. It's just the leader of the BLM organization in Toronto, and they had a protest outside of the American consulate there, and this person was trashing Trudeau. They said, and actually called him a white supremacist. Said, what did Justin Trudeau say in response to Trump's so-called Muslim ban, which it wasn't a Muslim ban? He said he wanted to accept everyone who's not allowed into the United States into Canada. When Justin Trudeau says that, he is a liar. He is a hypocrite. He is a white supremacist terrorist. That's what he is. Okay, so we're obviously dealing with somebody that is unhinged. Justin Trudeau is a progressive darling. I don't really care for him. But if you think that guy's a white supremacist, there's a screw loose. Something is not right. And so I think that's something that we're starting to realize more and more with some of these fringe on both sides, but really right now on the Democratic side. They have lost it with the rise of Trump. They have lost it. They're not responsibly absorbing the information around them. They're unhinged. I said after the election, I said, mental illness is sweeping the Democratic Party, and it is, and it's spread into Canada, and these are the people that want to be the alternative to Trump, and if they think they have any credible chance of beating him, they got to wake up. They got to quit, drinking the Kool-Aid. And if Democrats think that these crazy people are their next generation of leaders, it's going to be decades of a Trump coalition, decades. So, done with these crazies. So, but let's get back to Republicans real quick. So I saw this in the Wall Street Journal. There are some former Republican leaders, I don't believe that there are any in Congress right now, pushing for a carbon tax. So they said that there are a group of these guys, including former Secretary of Treasury Hank Paulson. He was the Secretary of Treasury under George W. Bush, and James Baker, Secretary of State. And they said they're having a meeting at the White House today to push for a plan on a carbon tax, a tax on carbon dioxide. And they want this in exchange for cutting regulations on, from the EPA. And I'm not sure I like this. I don't like any tax. I think any tax is regressive. I think that it hurts the economy. I believe that the American economy is fairly fragile right now. I really do. We've only been working on this for so many days, for like about 3 weeks. It really is in a precarious place. And so introducing any kind of tax, particularly on consumption of some energy, like carbon dioxide, whether it's oil, gas, coal, even what about buying your computer? Everything will have a tax associated with it because everything produces carbon dioxide in some way. Anything you get in the mail, there's carbon dioxide associated with shipping it to you. So this is going to impact each and every American. And for Republicans to be standing up, who are supposed to be so anti-tax and pro-growth, this makes no sense. And so I hope Donald hears this and puts it on the shelf. I hope he's respectful, but this is not the time for these kinds of. I do not think this is the time for these kinds of gimmicks, for playing any games, for putting the American economy and your well-being at risk. So I hope that this isn't shared by members of Congress, but I just wanted to put you guys, I want to let you guys know that this is something that's floating out there. And the quote from Baker and former Secretary of State George Shultz was, unlike current cumbersome regulatory approach, a levy on emissions would free companies to find the most efficient way to reduce their carbon footprint. So, look, I don't feel good about this. I know a lot of House Republicans didn't feel good about this back in June. They actually they passed a measure, it was 237 to 163, to say that they would not entertain any idea for a carbon tax, and that was just back in June. So I am hopeful that House Republicans and Democrats, many of them, including Senator Manchin from West Virginia, would approach this with a great deal of skepticism. So, and let's continue with this theme of Republicans, because I saw something that was really concerning. A lot of Republican members of Congress and the Senate are concerned about their well-being, about their safety, and the safety of their staff and family, because of the rise of these radical anarchists. And as evidenced by that Black Lives Matter leader in Toronto, these people are unhinged. They're crazy. They are not in line with reality. And they're sick. They're really sick. And so members of Congress are concerned about their safety because they're getting threats. I don't know if you've never been to the House office building in Washington, D.C., or one of the Senate office buildings in Washington, D.C., you can get through a metal detector, and you can get into any member of Congress's office. It is wide open. The place is, it is, I fear, a target. And so they're rightfully concerned. And so they had meetings on their safety, both in their D.C. offices and in their constituent offices back home, because they're getting so many threats from these people that are riled up about Obamacare. They're literally people that are threatening to hurt members of Congress over fixing Obamacare, which is about to implode and will impact tens of millions of Americans in the process. They're doing the right and humane thing, and their lives are being threatened for it. And so they're coming up with security solutions. And God, I hope everybody's safe, both Democrat and Republican. But I can tell you, just walking around a place like New York, I hear this kind of stuff all the time. I'll be at the coffee shop. I think I've told you guys this before, and I can remember one instance in particular. I was sitting in the coffee shop, minding my own business, writing something, and probably like writing a tweet to you guys or something. And this guy came up, and he was like your typical New York Times professor look about him, and white hair, looked deranged, wearing tweed. And he's like screaming at me, like, what you're doing is abhorrent, somebody's gonna get you. And I get all these emails saying they're gonna kill me and kill my dog and all, This is the unhinged, intolerant left that we're dealing with. And so if I'm getting this, and I'm just somebody that goes on Fox, CNN, does walks and talks, I can't imagine what a member of Congress is getting. I can't imagine what the Trump kids are getting. And this comes on the heel of Democrats in the mainstream media complaining that Eric Trump has Secret Service protection. Give me a break. Give me a break. So, anyway, the last story I have here that I wanted to make sure I shared with you guys is another Supreme Court pick. So obviously we've got Gorsuch, and he is fast-tracked. He's not going to have a problem. I feel very confident he's going to fill the Supreme Court vacancy left by Justice Scalia. But there's been a push within the White House to push Justice Kennedy out, to very softly push him into retirement so that they can fill that vacancy. And so the Daily Caller actually put it really interestingly. I wrote this quote down because I thought it was pretty funny. The signals from the White House have been delivered with the subtlety of a hand grenade. So I guess maybe they haven't been so soft about it. Trump wants to ensure that the court aligns with his values in the long term, and so they want Kennedy to step into retirement. He's been there for a long time, and they've even floated two people that could be replacements for him: Judge Brett Kavanaugh of the U.S. Court of Appeals of the District, the D.C. Circuit Court, and then Judge Raymond Kethridge of the 6th U.S. Court of Appeals. So those are the two guys, and interestingly, they both used to work for Justice Kennedy back in the day. What's also an interesting piece of trivia, if you get asked this, if you go to do trivia night or something like that, is Neil Gorsuch also worked for Justice Kennedy at one point. So this will be the first time that a former clerk of a sitting Supreme Court justice will sit on the court at the same time as him. So that's pretty cool. And so that's the news for today. We had a lot of stuff going on. As I said earlier, we are doing some really, really cool stuff out at the DML estate. We need to come up with an official name for it, but it is massive. And we are going to be doing so many cool things. DML is going to be doing his awesome documentaries. We're going to be doing shows. We're going to be doing more and even bigger stuff with the website. Some really exciting stuff's about to happen, and I feel confident we are building something that in 15, 20 years will be one of the dominant sources of news entertainment. I think we're building something that will last, and I'm so excited about it. I'm excited for DML's vision. I'm excited to show you guys what we're working on. As I said earlier, DML is busy at the estate today with contractors and stuff, and we're getting everything lined up. And we hope to be able to show you guys some sneak peeks of the new studio in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned. DML will be back with you guys really, really soon. He says he's sorry he couldn't join today, just so busy, and I know you guys understand. So make sure you download the app. We have some exciting new updates coming to that. Obviously, that's the best way to keep up with the walk and talks. It's the best way to keep up with the news as it breaks. And we'll be with you soon. So you guys take care. Bye.